Dr. Jessica Anderson adjusted her formal diplomatic uniform one final time before stepping onto the quantum transmission platform. The crystalline structure hummed with energy, preparing to project her holographic presence to the Galactic Council chambers light years away. Behind her, rows of monitors displayed the vital signs of various alien species, each screen showing detailed biological data collected over decades of covered observation. "Transmission in 30 seconds, announced Lieutenant Mark Stevens from his control station. "Remember, Doctor, they're receiving this broadcast in real time across 17,000 systems." Jessica nodded, her expression grim. 20 years of xenobiological research had led to this moment. She had spent her career studying how Earth's numerous plagues had shaped human evolution, never imagining she would one day use that knowledge to deliver an ultimatum to the galaxy. The platform activated, and suddenly she stood in the vast council chambers. Towering crystalline architectures stretched towards an artificial sky, while representatives from hundreds of species occupied their designated sectors. The Galactic Council's hemispheric arrangement placed the most influential races at the bottom, with newer members ascending in tiers based on their technological advancement and political standing. Elder Cax of the Archivists, his translucent form shimmering with internal bioluminescence, spoke first. "The Council recognizes Earth's representative. State your purpose, Dr. Anderson." Jessica took a deep breath, her holographic form projected with perfect clarity. "Honorable Council, I come bearing a message from Earth's unified government. Recent aggressive actions toward our colonial expeditions have necessitated this declaration." She gestured, and behind her appeared holographic displays of human genetic structures, viral patterns, and biological delivery systems. Humanity evolved on a planet that served as the galaxy's dumping ground for biological weapons. Each plague that should have exterminated us instead became part of our survival story. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. A Craxan representative, his scaled armor gleaming, laughed dismissively. "Are we supposed to be impressed by primitive genetic sequences?" "No," Jessica replied, her voice carrying an edge that silenced the chamber. "You're supposed to be terrified." With another gesture, she displayed the biological blueprint of the Craxan species. "Your bioneural networks, for instance. Did you know they share a remarkable similarity to a virus Earth survived 10,000 years ago? We didn't just survive it. We learned to control it, modify it, weaponize it." Elder Cax's bioluminescence flickered rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. His assistants began frantically accessing ancient records, their movements betraying growing concern. "Every human colony carries a complete database of engineered plagues," Jessica continued, displaying more biological data. "Each one is specifically tailored to every known species in this chamber. We call it the Samson Protocol. And it's not just about killing. We can reshape entire species at the genetic level." The Craxan representative stood, his warrior stance aggressive. "This is outrageous. You dare threaten the Council." "This isn't a threat," Jessica corrected him, her holographic eyes meeting his. "This is a warning. Humanity doesn't want war. We've spent our entire history fighting plagues and biological weapons. We understand their horror better than any species here. But if attacked, we will respond with everything we have." She displayed one final hologram, a simulation showing how quickly a tailored virus could spread through a species population. "War with Earth means total extinction, or worse, complete transformation of your species. We're telling you this openly because we don't want it to happen. The choice is yours." Elder Cax suddenly spoke, his voice trembling. "The archives. They speak of a quarantined world, a planet where the precursors contained their failed weapons." His outer membrane paled. "You're not just the survivors. You're the inheritors of every biological weapon ever created." Jessica nodded solemnly. "Now you understand. Respect our borders. Leave our colonies alone. Let us develop in peace. Because if you don't..." She let the implications hang in the air. As her hologram faded from the chamber, the Council erupted into chaos. But Elder Cax sat motionless, his ancient wisdom recognizing the truth. Humanity hadn't made a threat. They had given the galaxy its only warning. Admiral James Sullivan stood on the command bridge of the Kraxan flagship, Eternal Glory, his scaled hands clasped behind his back as he watched the tactical display. The human colony of New Montana hung in space before them, a gleaming jewel of terraformed success against the backdrop of an alien sky. 5,000 human settlers, all gathered in one vulnerable location. Status of the battle fleet, he demanded, mandibles clicking with anticipation. All 20 warships in attack formation. Admiral, reported his second-in-command, Commander Vex. Shield harmonics are synchronized, and bioneural networks are operating at peak efficiency. Sullivan's inner eyelids flickered with satisfaction. The human's bold warning to the Galactic Council had been an affront to Kraxan honor. His species had dominated space warfare for 10,000 cycles. They wouldn't be cowed by primitive threats. On the colony's surface, Governor Michael Hayes watched the Kraxan fleet's approach from the security bunker. Holographic displays showed the evacuation status. 98% of colonists were already in their designated shelter pods, sealed against what was to come. Last transmission from Earth Command received, reported Security Chief Sarah Miller, her face illuminated by emergency lighting. They say we're authorized to initiate the Samson Protocol. Hayes closed his eyes briefly. And the colonists' genetic treatments. All updated last month, sir. Everyone has the latest immunities. He nodded grimly. 20 years of governing New Montana, of watching children grow up under alien suns, had led to this moment. Send our final warning to the Kraxan fleet. Aboard the Eternal Glory, Sullivan received the human transmission with a dismissive gesture. The colony governor's face appeared on his command screen, surprisingly calm for someone about to witness their civilization's humbling. Kraxan fleet, this is your final warning, Hayes stated firmly. Withdraw now, or we will be forced to activate planetary defense protocols. You don't understand what you're risking. Sullivan barked a laugh, his warrior-cased markings glowing with battle-ready hormones. Your defenses are meaningless. Submit to Kraxan authority, and we may show mercy. Hayes' expression shifted to one of genuine pity. You were warned. Remember, you chose this. The transmission cut. Their defensive systems are activating, Commander Vex reported. But this is strange. They're not raising shields or powering weapons. The energy signature is purely biological in nature. Sullivan's mandibles clicked in derision. Commence the attack. Show them the price of defying the cracks. Sir, Vex interrupted, actual fear in his voice. The colony, it's self-destructing. On the tactical display, the human settlement erupted in a controlled series of detonations. Rather than conventional explosions, clouds of iridescent particles filled the atmosphere, catching the system's sunlight like suspended diamonds. Fold spectral analysis, Sullivan ordered, unease creeping into his voice. The particles, they're organic, sir. Some kind of engineered spores. They're actively seeking our ship's ventilation systems. Sullivan's blood ran cold as he remembered Dr. Anderson's warning about their bioneural networks. Raise emergency containment fields. Shut down all external vents. But it was too late. The particles had already attached themselves to the fleet's hull filters, designed to process space debris and cosmic radiation. Within minutes, the first ship reported irregularities in its bioneural circuitry. In his sealed bunker, Governor Hayes activated his quantum communicator. Earth Command, this is New Montana. The Samson Protocol has been initiated. The Kraxan chose extinction. God help them all. He watched the tactical display as the Kraxan ships began to drift out of formation, their crews already experiencing the first symptoms of humanity's engineered revenge. The Eternal Glory's bioneural networks, intimately connected with its crew's neural patterns, became the perfect transmission vector for what was to come. Hayes typed one final note into his personal log. They thought we were bluffing. They thought our warning was empty pride. They never understood. Humanity doesn't make threats. We only give warnings. And now they'll learn why Earth was quarantined for so long. Lieutenant Emma Parker watched through the shimmering force field of her cell as the first signs of chaos erupted aboard the Eternal Glory. The Kraxan guard who had been watching her for the past week suddenly stopped his usual aggressive pacing, his scaled head tilting as if listening to distant music. "Something wrong?" she asked, keeping her voice neutral despite knowing exactly what was happening. The guard's neural implants were already being rewritten, his aggressive instincts being subtly reshaped by the engineered virus. I feel strange," the guard admitted, mandibles clicking in confusion. "My thoughts are different." He looked at Emma with newfound curiosity rather than his usual contempt. "Why have we never asked humans about their art?" Emergency alerts began blaring throughout the ship. Through her cell's small viewport, Emma could see other vessels in the Kraxan fleet starting to drift out of formation. The bioneural networks that made their ships so formidable were becoming their greatest weakness. Commander Vex's voice echoed through the ship's communication system, strained and different from his usual harsh tones. "All personnel, report to Medical Bay for immediate evaluation. Something is affecting our cognitive patterns. We're changing." Emma stood up as her force field flickered and died. The ship's systems were beginning to fail as the virus spread through its biological components. She stepped out of her cell, her guard making no move to stop her. Instead, he was staring at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. "What are you doing to us?" he asked, but without accusation. His voice held only philosophical wonder. "Saving you from yourselves," Emma replied, placing a gentle hand on his scaled shoulder. "Your species has been enslaved by its own aggressive instincts for too long. We're setting you free." Moving through the ship's corridors, Emma witnessed the transformation firsthand. Warrior-cased Kraxan, who had previously strutted with militant pride, now stood in groups, engaged in deep discussion about the nature of existence. Officers who had demanded absolute obedience were now encouraging their subordinates to question and think independently. In the ship's medical bay, Dr. Kraz, the chief physician, frantically studied neural scans of the crew. Emma paused in the doorway, watching as the doctor's own aggressive tendencies visibly mellowed, replaced by scientific curiosity. "Fascinating," Dr. Kraz muttered, mandibles working excitedly. "The virus isn't destroying our neural pathways. It's optimizing them. Regions of our brains that were suppressed by our warrior conditioning are becoming active. We're experiencing enlightenment." Admiral Sullivan burst into the medical bay, his movements jerky and uncertain. "Doctor, you have to stop this. Our fleet, our warriors are laying down their weapons. They're starting poetry circles." His voice cracked with desperation, but even as he spoke, his eyes began to show the same transformation, the militant hardness giving way to thoughtful depth. Emma stepped forward. "Admiral, do you remember what Dr. Anderson said at the Galactic Council? This isn't about destruction. It's about transformation." Sullivan slumped into a chair, his warrior-cased markings already beginning to fade. "I understand now. Your species, you didn't just survive the biological weapons dumped on your world. You learned to use them with surgical precision. Not to destroy, but to elevate." Through the viewport, Emma watched as other Kraxan ships began transmitting new signals, not military codes, but philosophical treatises, mathematical proofs, and artistic expressions. The virus had reached their central command ships, spreading through their entire civilization's communication network. She activated her emergency transmitter, finally sending her report to Earth Command. "The transformation is proceeding as designed. The Kraxan Empire isn't being destroyed. It's being reborn. Their biological drive for conquest is being redirected toward conquest of knowledge. Their military precision is becoming scientific rigor. They wanted to make an example of humanity. Instead, they're becoming an example of humanity's ultimate weapon, the power to change rather than destroy." As she finished her transmission, Admiral Sullivan looked up from a hand-drawn sketch he had unconsciously created. "Lieutenant Parker, would you be willing to teach me about human poetry? I feel a sudden, overwhelming urge to understand beauty." Director Robert Thompson stood before Earth's Parliament, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic displays surrounding him. The emergency session had been called following the Kraxan incident, and now humanity's deepest secrets would finally be revealed to both their own people and the galaxy at large. "Distinguished members of Parliament," he began, activating the first historical recording. "What you're about to see has been classified for over a century. This is the truth about Earth's designation as a quarantine world." The chamber darkened as ancient footage played, showing massive alien ships releasing canisters into Earth's primitive atmosphere. The timestamp read, 50,000 BCE. "These were the precursors," Thompson explained, his voice steady. "An ancient race that used Earth as a testing ground for their biological weapons. But they weren't the only ones." He gestured, and the display shifted to show different alien vessels, different times, same purpose. "For hundreds of thousands of years, advanced civilizations used our world as a dumping ground for their failed experiments." Senator Elizabeth Wright leaned forward. "How did we survive?" "That's the remarkable part." Thompson brought up a complex DNA diagram. "Each plague should have wiped us out. Instead, we adapted. Our immune systems became increasingly sophisticated. Our genetic structure grew more complex. We didn't just survive their weapons. We incorporated them." The display showed various human populations throughout history, each surviving devastating plagues. The Black Death, smallpox, Spanish flu. These weren't just natural diseases. They were ancient weapons, lying dormant in our soil, reactivating periodically. Each time humanity survived, we became stronger. He turned to face the Parliament directly. But it went beyond mere survival. Our scientists began to understand these weapons at a molecular level. Every plague that failed to kill us became a template for our own biological research. New images appeared. Modern laboratories where scientists studied ancient viral patterns. The Samson Protocol isn't just one weapon. It's a library of every biological agent ever used against Earth, refined and perfected by centuries of human innovation. The chamber erupted in murmurs as Thompson displayed footage from the first successful test of human-engineered biological agents. 20 years ago, we discovered how to target specific genetic markers. We could isolate the traits that make a species aggressive, religious, artistic. Anything encoded in their DNA. Security Chief Marcus Reynolds spoke up. "Are you saying we can rewrite alien biology at will?" "Precisely." Thompson nodded grimly. The Kraxan didn't just attack a human colony. They attacked the species that had spent millennia learning to master biological warfare. Their own bioneural technology, which they thought made them superior, gave us the perfect delivery system. He played the final recording. The transformation of a Kraxan warrior in real time. The aggressive stance softening, the war markings fading, the neural patterns shifting from combat readiness to philosophical contemplation. "We didn't choose this power," Thompson continued. "It was thrust upon us by countless alien civilizations that thought our world was nothing but a convenient disposal site. They never imagined that each weapon they dumped would become part of our arsenal." The Parliament chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't just survived. They had become the ultimate adapters, turning every attempt to destroy them into a new weapon in their defense. "The galaxy needs to understand," Thompson concluded, his voice echoing in the quiet chamber. "We're not bloodthirsty. We're not conquerors. We're the children of every biological weapon ever created, and we learn to turn them into tools of transformation rather than destruction." The Kraxan chose to ignore our warning. They thought we were primitive savages making empty threats. Now they're becoming philosophers and artists, not because we destroyed them, but because we removed the chains of their own aggression. As the lights came up, Senator Wright stood. "And if other species attack us?" Thompson's expression was solemn. Then they'll learn what we learned over countless millennia. That true power isn't in destruction, but in adaptation. We can reshape any species that threatens us, just as we reshaped ourselves. Not through force of arms, but through the very weapons they used to try to destroy us. Admiral Thomas Reynolds stood at the observation deck of the TDS Nightingale, Earth's most advanced biological research vessel. Through the reinforced viewport, he watched the transformed Kraxan civilization with a mixture of awe and solemn responsibility. The ship's quantum sensors displayed real-time data of the changes sweeping through their society. Neural pattern analysis coming in from the capital world. "Sir," reported Dr. Lauren Mitchell, the ship's chief xenobiologist. Her holographic displays showed cascading changes in Kraxan brain structure. "The transformation is spreading faster than we anticipated." Reynolds stepped closer to the massive window. The once mighty warships of the Kraxan fleet now drifted peacefully in orbit, their weapon systems voluntarily disabled. Many had been repurposed into mobile laboratories and cultural centers. "Show me the comparison footage," he ordered quietly. "Before and after." The observation deck's smart glass activated, splitting into dual displays. On the left, historical footage showed Kraxan warriors engaged in ritual combat, their scaled bodies adorned with bioluminescent war markings. On the right, live footage revealed those same Kraxan discussing philosophy in newly established meditation gardens. "It's remarkable," Lauren said, studying her readings. "Their aggressive impulses haven't been destroyed. They've been redirected. The same intensity they once applied to warfare is now focused on intellectual pursuits." Reynolds watched as a former Kraxan battle cruiser transmitted data about a new mathematical theorem its crew had derived. And their military infrastructure being repurposed entirely. Lauren brought up new diagrams. Their combat training facilities are becoming universities. Weapon factories are being converted into research centers. Even their biological warfare labs are now producing medical breakthroughs. The Admiral's tablet chimed with a priority message from Earth Command. He read it silently, his expression growing more serious. "They want to know if the changes are permanent." Lauren nodded, pulling up long-term projections. "The virus doesn't just modify their current generation. It alters their reproductive DNA. Future Kraxan will be born with these new neural patterns. They'll know their warrior heritage, but they won't feel compelled to act on it." Through the viewport, Reynolds watched a Kraxan ship methodically dismantling its primary weapon arrays. The materials were being recycled into components for deep space research equipment. Their legendary battle fury was now channeled into the pursuit of knowledge. "We've received another transmission from their new science council," Lauren reported, her voice soft with wonder. "They're proposing a joint research initiative. They want to study the virus that changed them, not to reverse it, but to understand its elegance." Reynolds moved to his private terminal, beginning his daily report to Earth Command. "The punishment continues to fit the crime. They sought to destroy our way of life, to dominate through force. Instead, we've given them something they never knew they wanted: freedom from their own violent impulses." A alert sounded, drawing their attention to a new development. A Kraxan cultural ship was broadcasting what appeared to be a performance. Warriors who once would have fought to the death were instead engaged in an intricate dance, their movements telling the story of their transformation. "They're calling it the Liberation," Lauren translated, wiping unexpected moisture from her eyes. "They see what we did as setting them free." Reynolds added a final note to his report. "The galaxy will remember this, not as an act of vengeance, but as proof that humanity's greatest weapon isn't our ability to destroy. It's our power to transform. The Kraxan wanted to make an example of us. Instead, they'd become an example of what we can do when pushed too far. Their civilization isn't dead, it's evolving. And the galaxy is watching." As he finished his report, a new transmission came through. Original poetry from a former Kraxan war leader, now a celebrated philosopher. The verses spoke not of conquest and glory, but of the profound peace found in understanding the universe's deeper mysteries. "Send a copy of that to Earth's cultural archives," Reynolds ordered. "Let it stand as testament to what we've achieved here. Not victory through destruction, but transformation through understanding." Ambassador Elizabeth Morrison's private office in the Galactic Council station had become the busiest diplomatic hub in known space. Her desk, crafted from rare Centaurian crystal, displayed holographic requests for meetings from 30 different species, all marked urgent. "Another delegation from the Nexus worlds has arrived," Ambassador, her aide, Michael Chen, reported. "They're offering exclusive trading rights in their central systems in exchange for a non-aggression pact." Elizabeth sighed, watching the stream of diplomatic vessels through her office's panoramic viewport. A week ago, these same species had dismissed humanity as primitive upstarts. Now they couldn't scramble fast enough to establish peaceful relations. "Show me the latest intelligence report," she requested, her hands moving through the holographic interface. Images appeared showing various civilizations frantically dismantling their biological weapons programs. The Galactic Council's own military research division had been shut down entirely. "They're afraid of their own weapons being turned against them," Michael observed, sorting through diplomatic proposals. "The Kraxan transformation has them terrified of what we might do to their species." A priority communication flashed on her screen. Elder Cax of the Archivists requesting an immediate audience. Elizabeth nodded to Michael, who activated the quantum communication array. The ancient being's translucent form materialized before her desk. Ambassador Morrison. Elder Cax's bioluminescence pulsed with urgency. "We have completed our deep archive search regarding Earth's quarantine status. What we found, it changes everything we thought we knew." Elizabeth leaned forward. "Tell me." "Earth wasn't quarantined to protect humanity from the galaxy." Elder Cax's form flickered with emotion. "The quarantine was to protect the galaxy from what humanity might become if provoked into full-scale war. The precursors saw the potential in your adaptive capabilities. They feared what would happen if humanity learned to weaponize every plague that had been used against them. And now their fears have been realized," Elizabeth said quietly. "Not as they expected," Elder Cax countered. "They predicted humanity would become vengeful destroyers. Instead, you've become something far more fascinating. Surgeons of civilization itself." A new alert flashed. The Kraxan's newly established Philosophy Council was broadcasting their latest symposium across galactic channels. Former warrior clans now debated the nature of consciousness and the role of art in society. "Your people didn't just survive our weapons," Elder Cax continued. "You understood them at a level we never achieved. You learned to use them with precision, not for destruction, but for transformation. The galaxy fears you, yes, but there's also a growing admiration." Elizabeth's display updated with more diplomatic requests. Species were offering technology, resources, and political alliances. Some were even requesting human guidance in reshaping aspects of their own civilizations. "We're receiving an interesting pattern of requests," Michael noted. "Many species are asking for help in controlling their own aggressive tendencies. They've seen what happened to the Kraxan, and they want similar benefits, just without the forced implementation." Elizabeth began composing her report to Earth Command. "We never wanted to be the galaxy's surgeons," she wrote. "But perhaps this is a role we were uniquely prepared for. Every plague that was dumped on our world taught us something about adaptation and survival. Now we can use that knowledge to help species who want to evolve beyond their limitations." Elder Cax's bioluminescence pulsed with curiosity. "The precursors would be fascinated by what you've become. They tried to destroy you with biological weapons. Instead, you learned to use those same weapons to excise the cancer of unnecessary violence from an entire species." A final alert caught Elizabeth's attention. A joint declaration from multiple galactic civilizations, formally recognizing Earth's right to defend its colonies and interests. The document included a fascinating addition: a request for human expertise in helping species overcome their own destructive impulses. "Send a message to Earth Command," Elizabeth instructed Michael. "Tell them the galaxy is ready to talk about peaceful coexistence, not because they fear our weapons, but because they've seen what we can do with them. The Kraxan wanted to make an example of humanity. Instead, they became an example of humanity's true power, the ability to reshape rather than destroy. Dr. William Blake adjusted his environmental suit as he stepped into the transformed Great Hall of Battle, now renamed the Cathedral of Understanding, where weapon displays once lined the walls. Intricate mathematical equations and philosophical treatises now flowed in holographic streams. The former warrior temple had become the heart of Kraxan intellectual pursuit. Remarkable, he muttered into his recorder. 3 months since the transformation, and they've already developed 12 new branches of theoretical physics. His Kraxan guide, Master Scholar Vex, formerly Commander Vex of the Eternal Glory, gestured toward a group of young Kraxan engaged in passionate debate. Their scales, once marked with battle honors, now bore intricate patterns representing different schools of thought. We've discovered that our species' capacity for battle strategy translates perfectly into scientific methodology, Vex explained, his voice carrying the new melodic quality that had emerged in all transformed Kraxan. The same focus we once used to plan invasions now drives our exploration of quantum mechanics. Blake followed Vex through the cathedral's winding corridors. Everywhere, he saw signs of the profound change. Former weapon factories hummed with new purpose, producing deep space research vessels and quantum computers. The infamous Kraxan battle simulators now ran complex social models and artistic performances. "Tell me about the children," Blake requested, observing a group of young Kraxan in what had once been a combat training arena. Instead of practicing war moves, they were conducting elaborate experiments with light and sound. "They're born with the new neural patterns," Vex confirmed, his mandibles clicking thoughtfully. "They understand our warrior heritage, but they channel that intensity into discovery and creation. Yesterday, one of our youngest developed a new theory about cosmic string vibrations while playing with musical instruments. They entered the former War Council chamber, now serving as the central hub of the Kraxan Science Academy. The massive holographic display that once showed battle plans now mapped the mysterious dark energy flows between galaxies. "We're not just changing our pursuits," Vex continued, indicating a team of Kraxan researchers collaborating with visiting scientists from other species. "We're changing how we interact with the galaxy. Our natural drive for dominance has become a drive for understanding." Blake documented everything, knowing Earth's Xenoanthropology department would study this transformation for generations. "Do any of your people resent what was done to them?" Vex's expression showed the philosophical depth that had replaced military discipline. "How can we resent being freed from chains we didn't know we wore? We haven't lost our strength or our passion. We've simply redirected it. The universe is a far more interesting battlefield than any we could have imagined in our warrior days." A group of former Kraxan elite warriors passed by, deep in discussion about the artistic principles they had discovered in ancient human cave paintings. Their ceremonial armor had been modified to carry research equipment rather than weapons. "Your people's transformation has inspired others," Blake noted, showing Vex the latest diplomatic reports. 3 other species have formally requested similar assistance in evolving beyond their violent impulses. "We know," Vex responded. "They come to study us, to understand how we've changed. We show them our new ways, not through force as we once would have, but through demonstration and dialogue. Our legacy will not be one of conquest, but of showing the galaxy a path to enlightenment." As they reached the cathedral's apex, Blake gazed out over the Kraxan capital. The city's architecture was being steadily reshaped, aggressive angles softening into curves that reflected their new appreciation for aesthetic beauty. Former military parades had been replaced by public science demonstrations and artistic performances. "Humanity feared we would need to destroy you," Blake admitted. "Instead, you've become living proof that even the most warlike species can evolve." Vex's scales rippled with their new bioluminescent patterns, a physical manifestation of their species' transformation. "We are your greatest weapon, Dr. Blake, but not in the way anyone expected. Our change shows the galaxy that humanity doesn't need to destroy its enemies. You have the power to elevate them instead. General Rachel Martinez stood before the assembled Galactic Council, her dress uniform adorned with the newly created Peaceful Evolution Medal. Behind her, holographic displays showed the flourishing cooperation between species. Human scientists working alongside alien researchers, transformed Craxon philosophers, teaching at universities across the galaxy, and joint exploration missions probing the universe's deepest mysteries. 1 year ago, she began, her voice carrying across the hushed chamber. I stood before you as a warrior, warning of consequences. Today, I stand before you as a witness to what those consequences have taught us all. The displays shifted to show the Craxon homeworld, where once stood fortress cities bristling with weapons, now rose centers of learning and artistic expression. Former battle fleets had been converted into research armadas, probing the mysteries of deep space. We never wanted to be the galaxy's guardians, Rachel continued, gesturing to the success stories floating behind her. We were forced to become masters of biological warfare because your ancestors used our world as a dumping ground for their weapons. But look what we chose to do with that mastery. The chamber's attention shifted to the Craxon representative, once a feared warlord, now a celebrated philosopher. His scaled form bore the new patterns of enlightenment, and his eyes held wisdom where once there had been only battle fury. The Samson Protocol remains active in every human colony, Rachel acknowledged, bringing up secure facility feeds showing vast biological libraries. We maintain thousands of engineered plagues that could reshape or destroy any species, but that's not our purpose nor our desire. She moved through the chamber, making eye contact with representatives from dozens of worlds. In the past year, 17 species have approached us asking for help in controlling their destructive impulses. They've seen what the Craxon have become, not defeated enemies, but elevated allies. The displays showed new collaborative projects, human biological expertise combining with alien technologies to solve ancient problems, diseases being cured, environmental damage being reversed, and violent impulses being gently redirected toward creative pursuits. We are the children of plague and pestilence, Rachel declared, her voice carrying pride rather than threat. We survived every biological weapon ever created, but our greatest achievement wasn't survival. It was learning to turn those weapons into tools of transformation. The archivist Elder Cax floated forward, his bioluminescence pulsing with agreement. The precursors quarantined Earth because they feared what humanity might become. They never imagined who would become the galaxy's healers. Rachel nodded, bringing up the final display. A map showing dozens of joint human-alien research stations. We don't want war. We never did. Our power isn't in our ability to destroy, but in our capacity to elevate. The Craxon learned this truth. Others are learning it, and we stand ready to help any species that wishes to evolve beyond their limitations. The chamber erupted in approval as she concluded. Species that had once viewed Earth with suspicion now saw it as a source of hope. The fearsome biological arsenal that humanity commanded was no longer seen as just a deterrent. It was a promise of potential transformation. As the session ended, the transformed Craxon representative approached Rachel. You know, he said thoughtfully, in our warrior days, we would have seen your mercy as weakness. Now we understand it was the ultimate strength. You could have destroyed us. Instead, you made us better than we ever dreamed possible. Rachel smiled, watching as representatives from various worlds mingled peacefully. That's humanity's true power. We don't just survive. We help others survive. We don't just evolve. We help others evolve. And yes, if you force our hand, extinction will be a mercy compared to what we can do. But we'd rather show you what you can become. The galactic media would later call it the dawn of conscious evolution, the day when the galaxy finally understood that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their ability to destroy or transform. It was their willingness to help others transform themselves. The Terran declaration had begun as a warning of extinction. It ended as a promise of elevation.